The job that makes you rich and the job that makes you look successful are almost never the same job. Nobody grows up dreaming of owning a septic company. And yet the man who owns 3 of them will retire with more money than the surgeon he went to high school with, the one everyone in town still talks about. There is an entire category of work that quietly produces wealth while producing absolutely no admiration at all. And most people rule it out before they ever look at the numbers. So let's go through every type, starting with the ones nobody brags about, the dirty job owner. Let's begin with the one your parents actively hoped you would avoid. These are the people who own the companies nobody wants to think about. Septic pumping, grease trap cleaning, portable toilets, crime scene remediation, roll-off dumpsters. What makes them different is that disgust is a moat. Every unpleasant job is a job with fewer competitors, and fewer competitors means the price is whatever the owner says it is. Nobody haggles with the only man who will come at 3 a.m. when the restaurant floods. The margins in waste services routinely run 3 to 4 times what a restaurant clears, and restaurants are the business everyone dreams of opening. The customer is repeat, the contract is boring, and the work does not go away in a recession. The dirty job owner traded status for margin, which is a trade almost nobody is willing to make and almost everybody should look at twice. The trades operator, which brings us to the version of this that got respectable. Plumbing, HVAC, electrical, roofing. Not the person doing the work, the person who owns the trucks. The distinction matters more than anything else on this list. A plumber earns a good wage. A plumbing company earns a margin on 8 plumbers, and margin is the only thing that has ever made anyone rich. The path is almost boringly consistent. 1 van, then 2. Then a dispatcher because you cannot answer the phone and be under a sink at the same time. Then 12 vans and an owner who has not held a wrench in 6 years and does not miss it. Home services businesses sell for multiples that would embarrass most startups, and private equity has spent the last decade quietly buying them up, which tells you everything about who is actually right. The trades operator learned the difference between a job and an asset. Most people never do. The licensed bottleneck. Some jobs are protected by skill. Others are protected by a piece of paper that almost nobody else can get. These are the roles where the law itself limits how many people are allowed to exist. Harbor pilots, who board container ships and steer them into port. Air traffic controllers. Certain classes of crane operator, elevator mechanics. What makes this type unique is that the ceiling was never set by the market. It was set by a licensing board that decided how many humans get to do this, and the answer is always a small number. Harbor pilots in major American ports regularly clear $400,000 a year. Elevator mechanics in dense cities routinely pass $200,000. Neither job requires a degree. Both require getting through a door that is deliberately, permanently narrow. The licensed bottleneck did not outcompete anyone. They simply stood somewhere the crowd was not allowed to follow. The boring B2B founder. No consumer app founder has ever been this quietly wealthy, and that is not a coincidence. This is the person who sells something unglamorous to a business rather than something exciting to a person. Payroll software for dental clinics, fire extinguisher inspection, uniform rental, industrial fasteners. The consumer business has to seduce a stranger every single month. The B2B business signs a contract, becomes mildly annoying to replace, and gets paid on the first of the month for 11 years while the founder attends approximately 0 conferences about it. What separates them from the founders you have actually heard of is that nobody is watching, which means nobody is competing, which means the boring company keeps its margin while the exciting one burns its own to death buying customers. Nobody has ever made a documentary about a fastener distributor. Several of them own the building. The commission ceiling breaker. Now we get to the one that is genuinely hard. Enterprise software sales, medical device sales, industrial equipment, high-end commercial real estate. Jobs where the pay is not a salary but a percentage, and the percentage is attached to a very large number. This is the only job on this list where the money is loud and the person is not. A top medical device rep can out-earn the surgeon in the room, which is a fact hospitals prefer not to advertise. Enterprise reps at the top of the board clear 7 figures without owning anything at all. What makes this type different is that the ceiling was never the problem. The floor was. There is no salary to hide behind, and roughly half the people who try this are gone within 2 years. It pays enormously and it pays only for results, which is exactly why so few people last long enough to find out what they were worth. The regulatory specialist. Some people get rich because the rules changed, others get rich because the rules exist at all. Environmental compliance. Tax specialization, medical coding, customs brokerage. Anything where a law was written badly enough that companies will pay a permanent tax to a human who understands it. Every new regulation creates a small, permanent priesthood. The company does not want to learn the rule. The company wants to hand the rule to someone and never think about about it again, and it will pay a subscription forever for the privilege. What makes this type nearly invulnerable is that the thing that would destroy them, simplification, is the one thing no government has ever accidentally done. The regulatory specialist gets paid for complexity, and complexity is the only resource on Earth that has never once run out. The equipment owner. Which brings us to the quietest mechanism on this list. This is a person who owns a machine and rents it to people who need it briefly. Excavators, scaffolding, portable cranes, refrigerated trailers, medical imaging equipment leased back to the clinics that cannot afford to buy it. The equipment owner does not work. The equipment works. The owner services the loan, collects the rent, and spends most of their day arranging for objects to be driven somewhere. What makes this different from every job before it is that the income is fully detached from the owner's hours. A construction firm needs the excavator for 9 days. The owner needs the excavator for 30 years. It is the least romantic form of wealth in existence. It is also, mechanically, the closest thing to real estate that does not require real estate. The niche franchise operator. Franchises have a reputation problem, and the reputation is mostly about food. Restaurants are the franchise everyone buys, and the franchise that quietly destroys people. The ones that work are the ones nobody posts about. Commercial cleaning, home care for the elderly, restoration after floods and fires, sign manufacturing. What separates them is that the customer is never a person in a good mood. Nobody chooses water damage restoration. They call at 2 a.m., they do not ask the price, and their insurance company pays it. The elderly care franchise sells nothing anyone wants and everything a country of aging parents is about to need, which is the least inspiring and most reliable sentence in modern business. The niche franchise operator bought a boring machine and pointed it at an inevitability. The overpaid civil servant. This one offends people, and it is still true. Certain public jobs pay ordinary salaries and hand out extraordinary endings. Transit operators with overtime, port and utility workers, federal roles with pensions written decades ago that nobody has managed to close. The salary is not the story. The pension is. A guaranteed lifetime income of $80,000 a year is mathematically equivalent to owning roughly $2 million. And nobody who has one describes themselves as a millionaire because the money never arrives in a way anyone can photograph. What makes this type invisible is that their wealth has no address. There is no house, no account, no number to admire. There is a check that arrives every month until they die. They are the only rich people on this list who genuinely believe they are middle class, and they will argue with you about it. And finally, the quiet operator, who might be the least impressive person on this entire list. This is the man who owns the car wash, the woman who owns 2 laundromats and a self-storage lot, the couple who bought a small chain of vending routes in 2009 and have not made an announcement about anything since. They do not scale, they do not raise money, they do not have a title, a brand, a following, or a plan to disrupt an industry. When strangers ask what they do, they undersell it on purpose, because they figured out years ago that being underestimated is not a wound. It is a working condition. Self-storage has quietly been one of the highest returning real asset classes of the last 30 years. It is a metal box. It contains furniture nobody wants. It has beaten almost everything you were told to invest in. The quiet operator never had a good year. They had 25 average ones and never once interrupted the compounding to celebrate. They are the least visible people on this list, and the ones most likely to be rich right now, which means the job you have been quietly embarrassed about might have been the answer, and the one you were proud of might have been the trap. If you made it this far, you're the kind of person this channel is for. Subscribe.